my name is Shash Trivet. I'm a poet and a translator of Tamil poetry into English, and I was born in Sri Lanka, and I left because of the Civil War and sought asylum in the UK, where I now live. Um, it's such a great honor to be invited to read for you all at the Pragati Vichar Poetry Festival for World Poetry Day. And I'm really looking forward to sharing my poetry with you. I'm going to start reading a poem from a recent anthology that I co-edited with Vidyan Ravindran and Seni Senaviratna, called Out of Sri Lanka, Tamil, Sinhala, and English Poetry from Sri Lanka and its Diaspora. It was published by Blood Axe Books in the UK in June 2023 and by Penguin India in December 2023. I'm going to read you a poem by a young poet called Castro Ponor, who is a Tamil poet who lives in Jaffna, in the north of Sri Lanka. He writes in Tamil, and this poem's been translated by Nedra Rodrigo. Amir's Lover. Amir, it has been a week today since I last saw you. A crow has been cawing for 3 days now on the branch of a plumeria in the backyard. Last Sunday, as I returned home after Salat, my neighbour Fatima's fighting rooster, its eyes reddened, lay dead beneath that same tree. An evil omen, Anna had said. A stretch of sea beside the Kabristan, an octopus removed from the push and pull of the estuary clings tightly to a slippery, moss-covered rock with its purple tentacles. Amir, we withdrew from the core of this crushing life and clung to love. Yes, we are deviants. The way Anna gazed at Salim when he boarded his boat, the way Mullah gazed when she saw her first menstrual blood stain her hands. Amir, what more can you expect of a man in the first moment of knowing love, except to gaze at you? Every grain of sand on this Cabristan beach is cursed by the tears Anna shed as she spread the salted fish to dry, thinking of Salim. One after another, every wave tries to wash it away and cannot. Amir, this is a cursed shore, just like our love. I have never seen on this Cabristan shores the red-legged flamingos that fly from the Caribbean to the southern lands. When they told me Salim's eldest son, Abdullah, saw a pair of flamingos perched on Rasul's boat, and that in awe he called them birds of the sun, it was only you who pervaded my soul. Amir, I thought of our dream to see the doves of Bombay through the window in your room. Yes, this sea, this sky, these birds, none of them are meant for us. I love that poem because the anthology is full of different voices from different generations, poets writing in Tamil or Sinhala or in English, and poets writing about the Civil War, poets writing about nature, about religion, and also of love. And love and life go on no matter what is going on around you. And the next poem I'd like to read from the anthology is just such a poem about life going on amidst carnage and desolation. It's written by Suresh Kanagaraja, who's an academic who lives in the US now, and he writes in English. Um, so this is Lavanya's Twilight Bike Ride. A damp, prematurely darkening late October evening. The shells from Palali explode near drowning the monsoon thunder. A jeep whizzes past, with 15-year-olds clutching AK-47s to the battle site, crushing the jasmines on the wayside. From the other side hobble tractors with the mangled remains of fighters. As they pile the bodies on the ground, blood mingles with rainwater, streaming along the wheel marks to revive the roots of the creeper. In neighbouring campgrounds, camouflaged girls play hopscotch, their guns resting against palmyras. Smell of fresh baked bread distracts as the baker's boy cycles past, while the 6 o'clock Marchetti bombers make the day's last run towards cadre bunkers. I slow down for mothers listlessly crossing the road with provisions to cope with tomorrow's uncertainties. Business is brisk at the junction shops, where Mudalalis bargain militantly, making the best of today's certainties. An eye on the whirring chopper overhead, and wary of its machine gun fire, I take my year-old Lavanya on her favourite evening bike ride. At this time, when the world is witnessing the carnage that's going on in Palestine, it's very important to hear poets write about what's going on around them. And there's going to be such a wealth of poetry that's going to come out of Palestine in the years to come. And I think it's our duty to hear these voices. I'm now going to read some of my own poems from my forthcoming collection, which is called The Naming of Names, which is going to be published in August of this year by Smith Doorstop in the UK. It's about the Sri Lankan Civil War. It's about the names, what happens to the names once people die. It's about normal people who are caught up in the tragedy of geopolitics. But I'm going to start with a lighter poem. Here be dragons, who went of this world, my voyager. Your head never still on your pillow. You fly on the upbeat of a murmuration. Look down on the vastness below and draw songlines, connections, parallels, which make sense only to you. A cartographer, a tussle-headed dreamer, fighting giants by day, riding with the Valkyrie at night. What do you think of those who don't have your gift to see the improbable in the ordinary? My son, may your flights of fantasy lead you to lands where the warmth of the sun will welcome you, and may the east wind always bear you back home. My family have had a sort of crisscrossing relationship between Sri Lanka and India. When I was 10, my mother and I left India seeking refuge because of the war. And my mother is from India, and this is her story and her family's story. Crossing waters. My mother made me the keeper of her stories, of love and loss, and a family in the making. of how her grandmother jumped from a moving train from Colombo to Jaffna to return to the man she was determined to marry. Of how in time her daughter, my grandmother, chose a man from across the waters who unknotted his punul to marry her, a Christian. Of how when my mother left India to join my father waiting at the altar, among her goodbyes was one that was to be final. The news of her father's death, the man she measured all men against, reached my father by telephone while she waited to cross the waters, and he kept it from her. A silence which wreathed his wedding vows, curling around the jasmine in her bouquet and in her hair. It was 1964. The Ceylonese government was in a frenzy, expelling Indian Tamils from the island. A second visa would prove impossible, my father judged, and sealed his lips tight. From such beginnings, marriages are made. Next poem is under the civil war in Sri Lanka, when, according to the UN, between 40 to 70,000 civilians were killed in the safe zones set up by the Sri Lankan government. They were caught between the Tamil Tigers and the Sri Lankan army. It's by the banks of a lagoon called Nandikadal Lagoon, and this poem's about that. Nandikadal Lagoon. The waters of the lagoon were brackish with the sweat and tears of 26 years. Every eye, every name and story, which began as a caress and ended with a sob, made its way in trickles to the lagoon shore. Here the salty lives pooled, filled the mouths of those who swam in them with bitterness, tried to stop their hearts. Sorrow made a mirror lake of longing in which people found themselves. Sorrow made a peephole, offering glimpses of forgotten laughter. Sorrow chronicled a bloody end as the sun dripped fire, emptying itself. Come, immortal waters, Nandini, plait my hair with your sodden breastbones and rib cages. It's called The Last Mango Tree. The last mango tree stands alone in a garden that was once full of other mango trees and coconut palms. It holds out its arms, golden with fruit, and looks at the rusted shut gate. Grass grows beneath it and around it, and the birds have grown accustomed to its solitude. The last mango tree waits, remembering those years when children clung to its branches, women picked its fruit, green for pickling, honeyed orange for eating. The last mango tree knows that its branches hold the secrets of a lost people. It stands guarding memories, surrounded by abandoned and derelict life. I wish you all a wonderful World Poetry Day. We all begin life listening to poetry, nursery rhymes, lullabies, these are all poetry. And then we carry poetry with us through our lives. We pick poems for our weddings, for our funerals, for when we have an important occasion in life that we want to mark. Poetry never leaves us, and we should all be reading poetry more and more. Thank you.